Rolling, let's get into this. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. What's the topic? One of the greater illusions I've seen in society is the average working class family with a couple kids believing they ever paid taxes. People are like, well, what do you mean? Unless you're an exceptionally well earning family, you don't pay taxes. You don't. And if you know how to claim your taxes and you have kids, you definitely do not pay taxes. Well, I saw the money come out of my check. So you paid in, but did you receive more benefits than you ever paid in? And did you receive services for your taxes as well? Where am I going with this? Well, like and subscribe, I'll explain. Most people never take notice that public school, all those people always say, we want to buy in this community because there's good schools. Translation, less bastard children. That's really what that means. That's what they're saying. Less single mothers. Less people where daddy went to the grocery store to get some cigarettes, the corner store for a pack of smokes. Less bastard children. And so they'll be like, well, good schools. Well, how much do those good schools cost? I went back to the West Coast to reestablish myself for tax reasons. And I thought it was like maybe 15,000. No, now it's more like 19,000 per child per year for 13 years. So $19,000 times 13. Now, I just want to put that in perspective for a second. If you take that number and, 19,000 times 13, look at that big ass number there. If you took that much money and put it in the S&P, left it there for 30 years, look at the number. You go get a compound interest calculator. It's on your phone. You can find it. It's pretty easy. That's a goddamn good retirement that was just pissed away on your children to teach them little if nothing. Because if your children are so educated with this great educational system that you paid for, apparently, maybe not, they should be better than someone who walks across the river. Just saying. No, your kids are good enough after 13 years of, childhood daycare, we call the public school system, to do what? Flip hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves? No, it's a cosmic crime what happens there. And the whole system is basically set to be up a daycare. That's all it really is. But if you think about it from the perspective, how many people do you know paid anywhere? Some states it's like 8,000, 9,000. Some states it's like up in the 20,000s. I live in a blue state that ironically has no state income tax. So it turns out that it's pretty good. It's pretty good for me on tax reasons for me. But that state is like $19,000. Now, I don't know anybody I know that paid 19 grand in taxes. Let's say you have two kids. We're talking, what is that? $38,000? Two kids, what is that? $2,000 per tax credit per child tax credit, and probably some homeowners exemption. We're talking what? We're getting around 45 grand. If you have, let's just take it down to 15 grand. Three kids at 15 grand would be 45,000, then the tax credit for the kids. We're talking around 50 grand in benefits. Did you pay that much in taxes? But wait, I pay federal taxes. Okay, let's go into that. Your federal taxes. These roads that are out there, the highways, and even the state taxes you might pay to keep, the local county roads going. Those products that are brought from the other side of the country or the world? Did it ever occur to you that you benefit from that? Like when you can go into a store out of season and buy fruit, or like say you're in the middle of the country and you can buy lobster in the middle of the country. You can buy a product that should not be where you're at. Yeah, you receive benefits from the federal taxes you pay. What about the military protecting our country? Because guess what? A lot of other countries would be way more ambitious if we didn't have the might and power we do. The police, yeah, they might get on your nerves sometimes, but let's be honest, you're kind of happy when they're busting someone that's busting into your house. And then the prison system keeps the fuckos in jail. There are a lot of little things that our taxes pay for. And I would argue, yes, you get screwed on the deal. There's a lot of cronyism in America. No shortage of that. But you do receive something for the taxes you pay. Arguably, we should probably have a better system, like a small government with, people bidding out who's going to do it so we can get a better deal on it. But that's aside, another conversation for another day. You receive benefits for the federal taxes you pay, and likely for the state taxes you pay, you receive benefits as well. So to sit there and say, well, I paid in it, but you immediately received benefits. And then we go to the granddaddy of it all. Your kids in public school, wow, anywhere from 15 to 19,000, 8,000 or 9,000 in a poor state per year per student. I don't know anybody. And the people that generally have the most kids aren't rich. I'm just going to be real about that. Like the people that are more well-to-do usually have one, maybe two kids. But the people that receive really the most benefits, even if both mama and papa both work, yeah, they have like 3, 4 kids. And hey, more power to you. Have a happy family, whatever. But then to turn around and say, well, I pay too much in taxes when you receive far more benefits than you ever receive. And you know why this great grand illusion continues to go on with people? Much like the whole, like, the poor saying the 1% are so greedy. You know why? Because no one's ever sat you down and just showed you the mathematics. Nobody does that. And even if they could and would, most of you wouldn't listen. In fact, let me tell you the truth of it. Even if you did know the truth, I've had a few guys, I was at truck stops back in the day, and I just pointed this out to a guys, and they're like, wow, nobody's ever actually just written it down like that and just showed you. And the same thing with retirement by 30. Live in a truck, live in a tent, live in whatever you can to live as cheap as possible. Drive a truck or, go out and become a plumber, electrician, become an engineer, whatever you do, live as cheap as possible when you're young and invest when you're young. Become the investor class the first fucking year you're working. If you got to live with your parents, whatever. But after a few years there, when you're making, say, 10% on $100,000, so $10,000 for letting your money work for you, and you get like, I don't know, $300,000-$400,000, you got more than enough. Then go out and buy a cheap house somewhere or just some land and, build yourself a little tough shed type of thing, little bachelor bungalow, or hell, just get a friggin' RV. And you have one place in the north, one place in the south. By 30, you're retired, or 7 to 10 years, depending on when you start. Depending whenever you get your head out of your ass. That's basic mathematical mindset. The only thing really holding you back in life is you and your own embrace of willful ignorance. The poor, and I'll just close it with this, the poor are the greediest fucking people I've ever met. I know, the rich, the 1%. And look, at some certain point, and I'm not the first to point this out, but the real joke about the whole rich and their mansions and their cars and their lifestyle, you can only occupy one room at a time, man. You can only drive one car. You can only do so much. Money can only take you so far. Your envy of what somebody else will look at. You know why you envy what the rich have? Because it gets them more pussy, gets them better pussy. That's it. Or they have an easier life. And, you're like, oh, I have to work so hard. You know why you got to work so hard? Because you spend all your money on dumb shit. That's why you got to work so hard. There's no great mystical answer to this. You go out and buy crap you don't need, or you stick your dick in crazy and decide to go raw dog, and then bada bing, bada boom, she's like, I'm pregnant. By the way, ladies, I'm a little sick and tired of you blaming guys for that because we have how many myriad forms of birth control, or you could just keep your pants up. If you can say you can say keep your dick in your pants. Ladies, if you're fucking scumbags, if you're fucking douchebags and losers, then yeah, your kids are being raised in poverty because you're good at making shitty decisions. The poor are the greediest people I have ever met because they have opportunities abounding in America. This is part of the reason that a lot of people from the second and third world, when they come here, they can game this system so well because they've never had shit. And once they get over here, they're like, wow, there's just options everywhere. How are you people failing? And the answer is we've built a system where we don't allow people to fail. Just like we don't show people body parts blown apart on TV. We don't want you to see death. We want to convince you there's some afterlife and some other thing, and maybe there is, I don't know. But we want to shield you from reality for as long as goddamn possible. And you know why we want to do that? Because then you go out and waste the majority of life. That's why Social Security exists. Originally, the plan with Social Security is if you made it to a certain age, you get the money. But most people didn't make it to that age, so it was just a good scam by the government. But you really get to thinking about it. The Social Security allows you to piss away the majority of your life buying crap you don't need. Status crap, cars, clothes, garbage, better houses. And if you want to do that, that's fine. But please, just like with your kids, education, you should be the one paying for that. If you piss away all your money throughout the course of your life and you don't have any money, have nothing going on when you're old, fuck it. That's your problem. It shouldn't be put on me. It shouldn't be put on any of these kids in the future. It's not their job to feed you because you didn't save any money when you were younger. Retirement by 30, dude. It's not even complicated. But that's the thing about it. We live in a system and a world that just teaches people to be ignorant. Constantly ignorant. And any sort of real truth, mathematical truth, statistical mathematical truth, it's the type of information that is forbidden. You're labeled as hate speech for telling the truth about things. And you know what? The truth would prevail if we didn't subsidize everybody. Like, just as a closing thought, I've said it before and I'll say it again about the food system in this country. We waste 30 to 40% of the food goes to waste in this country. Everybody on the food chain between the farmers, the truckers, everything, they're all getting tax deductions. People that pack it into cans or frozen food, whatever, they're getting a tax deduction for all the people, the equipment and all that. Another truck, another tax deduction. Then it gets to a DC tax deduction there, another truck tax deduction. Then it finally gets to the grocery store. And when it would get a small tax deduction for going into the garbage, nope. While it's still food, they get a huge tax deduction for giving it away as food, just like the restaurants as well. Do you think these people started giving away food to the food banks because they really gave a shit? Maybe it's some good PR, but no, they started doing it because the government gives them a huge tax deduction. So then you go to a food bank, and all that food is a tax deduction at some point, with the very exception of the handful of, food drives where local people go out and give stuff. But most of the stuff comes from big business. Then you get back to the whole idea of food stamps, or EBT as it's called in the modern era. You just got all the food you needed from a food bank that gives you copious amounts of food. Better food than you could afford to buy. And then you get several $100s. I remember this a few years ago. In a particular state I was passing through, I asked my family, I said, how much do you think they give in food stamps in this state? And I asked her, how much does it cost, a relative? How much does it cost you to feed your family? So about $500 a month, because, I have to save and cook and whatnot. I said, did you know someone on EBT in your particular state gets $740? And put on top of that all the food they get at the food bank? That's why a lot of people that are broke are so goddamn fat. It's not just that the food is bad, like it's like white carbs and sugar, salt and bullshit. It's the fact that you give these people everything they need and then some. So when you got all this food that you could literally, you just had to go buy a few things for EBT, you got a lot of EBT left over. At a certain point, after you stocked up a bunker's worth of survival stuff, and in some cases, you can even buy seeds and fruit trees, which I think is a good thing. Gardening's good. You got these people, and they'll just go down the aisle of like a Dollar Tree and load up. Or they'll buy the most highest cuts of meat at Costco. And you're paying for that. I'm paying for that. I mean, God to be honest, most people that have, wife and kids and all that crap, you're not paying for it because you get more than enough benefits from your public school system and all the other things you benefit from. Lord knows I'm paying for that. And this kind of gets into part of the reason that I want to participate a little less in society. Unless I've got a job that I love doing, like driving a truck, I'm not keen on the idea of just working some shit job to pay taxes for a bunch of other people that effectively contribute nothing, little if nothing to me. And really nothing to the system as well, other than here's your next taxpayer, here's your next oil filter. Anyhow, that's my thoughts. Y'all take it easy. Freedom Phil out.